I originally fell in love with the concept of radio when I was about 12 or 13. I wanted to be a DJ, that was it.
And as we gather here at the nighttime, taking ourselves seriously, oh no, not at all. Why is that? Because we're in the Marsden theater world.
This is legendary Canadian broadcaster David Marsden doing what he does best, creating magic on the radio.
And you are in the Marsden theater.
Oh my God, isn't it great? Can you feel it? What's that noise? What's that noise? Oh, it's the music!
Marsden's love of radio was equaled only by his love of rock and roll. David recalls that relationship began with a television program in early 1956 that featured a young, hip-swiveling Elvis Presley.
One Saturday night, I had this bed, a little television, you know, the little screens, black and white with lots of hash, lots of snow, and the Tommy Dorsey show came on, and this guy came out, and he just shook his hips and carried on like Faust, and I fell in love with rock and roll.
After touring the southern United States as manager of a band called the Rebels, David set out to fulfill his dream of being on the radio.
I probably sent out 100 tapes to radio stations, recorded on my Seabreeze, which was the size of a Volkswagen, I might add. And I banged on the door of exactly 33 radio stations. Some of the radio stations told me that I should probably just go sell shoes, that would be better.
David eventually found his first radio job in Chatham, Ontario. Not long after, he moved on to CHLO in St. Thomas, just outside London. CHLO was an easy-listening music station that did not play rock and roll. But Dave Mickey, as he now called himself, changed that.
So I played Ray Conniff and Montavani for a while, maybe 2 or 3 weeks, and I was Dave Mickey, that was my name. And I got bored with Montavani, and so one day I just brought in a little stack of my 45 records, and I created the Dave Mickey character in St. Thomas. And I got away with that for about 6 or 7 weeks. And then the owner tuned in one night to hear this. His name was John L. Moore, and I was called in the next day and told that my services were no longer needed. A week went by and the phone rang. And it was Don Lumley, the PD of CHLO, and he said, "Could you come over? John would like to talk to you." I said, "Sure." So I go back in, and John L. Moore says, "Well, you know, it seems as though you've picked up some fans and they're writing letters to us. Would you come back on the air?" And that's when I learned to say the most important thing in radio. Yes, I will, but I'm going to do it my way.
Dave Mickey's way was so successful that in 1963, a Toronto top 40 radio station snapped him up, and all hell broke loose.
I joined the CKEY, and I had no idea what I was getting into. The next day after my first show, the newspapers had gone crazy. The phone lines at CKEY were completely burned out from parents calling to complain about this character and what's he doing to our youth. I just knew I had to keep going.
The 700-word-a-minute Mickey was a huge success with teens. Tamarack Records quickly released a 45 single featuring Mickey talking with backup singers. Media guru Marshall McLuhan was impressed with Mickey's communication skills and mentioned him in one of the chapters of McLuhan's 1964 book, Understanding Media.
All right, is everybody ready?
In the summer of '63, one of the hottest hits in Canada was Mickey's Monkey, which gave CKEY management an idea.
So the radio station thought it would be a good idea if I had a monkey. So they got me a monkey, if you can believe this. I had to go to the airport because the way it works apparently is that the first person the monkey sees when it comes out of the cage is the person it attaches to. So I became mother to the monkey. And the monkey lived with me. The monkey was with me 24/7. and it was always on my shoulder. It was a little spider monkey, and it was Mickey's monkey. I was on the air at CKEY, and I was in the circus wagon, and we were at the CNE. And I don't exaggerate when I tell you there were about 5,000 people every night that I was at the CNE. 5,000 people surrounding the CKEY circus wagon while I broadcast. And the monkey would sit on my shoulders with its two little legs hanging here and its hands here, you see, like this. And I'm doing a live commercial on the air at the Mickey speed, 700 words a minute. And suddenly I feel this warmth creeping down my back. The monkey is relieving itself and it's going down my back because he's got his legs straddled. But I can't let on because there's 5,000 people watching.
Dave Mickey added television to his resume in 1964 when he landed a gig as host of the CBC TV show Music Hop, which ran until June of '67. The following year, Dave Mickey made a drastic career change.
I had pretty much burned the Dave Mickey thing out after 7 years. And so I actually took a year off and sort of took my brain apart and put it all back together again. And then I went to Montreal. They hired me there, but they said, you can't use the Dave Mickey name because we're not a rock station, and Dave Mickey it's just about rock. And they said, you'll have to change your name. And so I changed my name instantly to David Marsden.
And David Marsden instantly became one of the new underground radio personalities on FM radio in Montreal, working for station owner Jeff Sterling.
FM was kind of sacred. It was for old ladies who had FM radios in their homes that were like the size of a Buick. And there was no FM in cars. And so it was like, nobody's going to hear this. But finally, Jeff Sterling said, yeah, okay, we'll go along with this. But we're only going to allow you to play one song, and it has to be Sunday night at 6 o'clock.
The one song they chose to play was the entire second side of the Beatles LP Abbey Road, which is actually many songs linked together.
Jeff and the other people at the radio station were so nervous about this rock and roll and it was the Beatles. On FM, my God, they brought in extra security. They brought in extra people to take care of the telephones. They got 2 calls. Both of them said, this is great.
Marsden returned to Toronto FM radio in 1970. Then in 1978, he was offered the opportunity to program CFNY, an FM station in the Toronto suburb of Brampton. Once again, David Marsden found himself at the forefront of a new musical revolution.
Originally, it started, CFNY was about heavy metal because no one in Toronto was playing heavy metal. It was about Ozzy, it was about Black Sabbath and all that stuff that was nobody would touch at that time. And then Q107 started up and they decided to play all that heavy metal that we were doing really well with. And so I knew I had to find something else because I didn't want to do what everybody else was doing because it just splits the market. And B, I didn't have the signal that they had. And that's when I found all the Sex Pistols and the Joe Jacksons and all the punk music of the time. It was just coming on then. So we took over that and we owned it. Most people play songs. Most radio stations play songs. Most internet radio stations play songs. I don't, nor did any of the DJs at CFNY. We played music because how we fit the music together, that was the secret.
Invisible airwaves crackle with light. Right the dead bristle with the energy.
I called the station the Spirit of Radio because I really believed that's what it was. We used that slogan right from the beginning. And eventually, I guess it was, we were about 8 years into maybe 6 years into our work when Rush wrote a song called Spirit of Radio. that was indeed about that radio station, and it became their biggest hit. And I'm still waiting for the check.
Marsden left CFNY in 1988 and moved to Vancouver to launch a new radio station, as well as create programming for CBC television. Returning to Toronto in early '99, he co-founded Iceberg Radio, one of the world's first internet stations. Since June of 2003, Marsden has continued to create his radio magic with the Marsden Theatre on 94.9 The Rock.
Thanks for dropping by the Marsden Theatre. We have a film crew in here tonight, so we got a little more.
His radio philosophy is deceptively simple. Listen to your listeners.
It's just like making love.
Well, in the old days, I always answered the phone, and when I was running radio stations, I always made sure that the announcers always answered the phones. People are giving us feedback. We've got to listen to them. Today, it's email. I have a live chat room that goes with my show. As soon as I sign on, the chat room opens up and people are coming in and out all night long. Some stay for the whole night. It's incredible.
In 1998, David was one of several DJs from across North America honored by the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame in Cleveland for his pioneering radio career.
The night of the big ceremony, I was up in the green room, and I was sitting at a table, and there were two people sitting talking, and three of us were talking. And the one guy was George Clinton. I didn't know it at the time. I was so stupid. And the other guy was Little Richard. And we're just sitting there talking like three guys talking music. It was fantastic.
The Canadian Music and Broadcast Industry Hall of Fame inducted David in March of 2011. For more than 50 years, David Marsden has been a dynamic, creative radio innovator, and he says there's definitely more to come.
Oh, I'm not finished. Good Lord, I got a whole lot to do. I've got things I want. There's a few things I got to change about this business called radio and internet. Yeah, I'm not done. Don't cut that.